I'm Sarah Russell.
I'm J.Q. Walker.
I'm Hind, and we are
The Neurodivergent Report, a research-based podcast by and for neurodivergent brains.
In each episode, we'll explore topics relating to neurodiversity and coping strategies by reviewing the literature and discussing current topics.
We will also have interview episodes where we sit down with experts in the field and listeners like you, with the hope that together we can all learn to heal in community.
However you are able to engage, thank you for being here.
So excited
And
that
she's one of my one of my co-hosts. I now have two co-hosts.
Wow.
I
That's
know.
getting like a crowd now. It feels like a crowd.
Yeah. Call ourselves Powerpuff Girls, basically.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It feels very much like peer support.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, I mean, it's a lot to sort of put out weekly content by yourself. And so it's really nice to have
Yeah.
people like one person who's thinking about one thing and another person who's thinking about another thing.
Yeah. I have to say, I think
Yeah.
I mentioned this, but I really like this like format better, but more like a conversation. So it's
Yeah.
not just, someone just asking questions, someone answering, but we are like really having a discussion about something, because this is where some like unplanned, very valuable things can unfold.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I really like.
Unexpected brilliance. Yes.
Yeah.
I love that too. Great. Well, I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you for having
I
me.
think, yeah, of course. I think I'm just going to talk a little bit about you. So Karolina is a wordsmith from Poland, currently working as a translator. Is that still true?
Yes, including also. So mainly
Yes,
I
and
work mainly right now. It's mainly SEO. So
Ooh, okay. But the main reason that we are here today is to talk about your beautiful brain, and your and the beautiful extended nervous system that is attached to that brain, and the body that's attached to that nervous system, and how they don't maybe always talk to each other.
Yeah.
yeah,
So yeah, I think it's really important to me to have you on here because we have yet to talk to someone who identifies as a highly sensitive person. And I do. Well, so yeah, I guess every episode has. I feel like the question that I tend to start with is like, tell me a little bit about your childhood and or your early mental health journey.
I started suffering from depression when I was at least 10 years old, and how I got there, I think I started getting there the moment I entered the school system. Because before this happened, I wasn't exposed so much to, let's say, how society works as much. I wasn't, secluded, but it's different because I didn't really attend nursery. I was like there for 1 year. But I think what really led to my depression was that I was just different, and my being different when faced with the surrounding, so other children, like it always gave me a sense of not belonging. And I think this is the root. Also because there were like, let's say, I'll give you examples of situations.
Examples
I think context really always makes it, like better to understand. So one of the first things I remember is that like when I was back from school, typically kids are very enthusiastic about going out.
Rambunctious.
Yes, like playground, playing together. Not me. I was very physically even tired, overwhelmed. And I needed to stay at home, preferably just read, just the whole idea, the mere idea of going out there was like it would be a punishment. And now I am aware that it is not like, all other people are normal and I am just, there's something. There are people who have their own struggles. Some just deal with it. Let's say some conceal it better, some conceal it worse. It's not such a binary picture. But then when you're a child and you get this idea that what you prefer is always a bit different than, let's say, the majority, it makes you feel like the odd one out. And this amplified with time, because I was always very tired physically after school. I wasn't a child who needed like interactions, more than, let's say, at the end of the day, a school day, it was really like enough. Like I was back home, I needed to just physically rest, because now I realize, because of the sounds, of the intensity of interactions.
You were picking up on so much stimuli because
Yes,
of being
yes.
that. Yeah, I think maybe actually, I'm sorry, I cut you off.
So I just started a diagnosis towards ADHD and also autism spectrum. So this is like a mixed combined diagnosis.
Yeah.
It will take weeks, but let's say that I have
As it
really.
should.
Yes, it has to be very, meticulous. But what I do know now, for sure, is like my own assessment, laywoman's assessment, is that I absolutely have ADHD, and I really might be on the spectrum in some way. Although my being on the spectrum feels very atypical, because there are so many things about me that are contradictory to this like typical view of.
Very interesting that you're saying that. Not to
Yeah.
interrupt, but
Yeah.
women score sub-threshold when it comes
Yeah.
to the autism test, even if
Yeah.
they do have it. The way we
Yes.
mask is completely different.
Yes.
The tests were not done for women. There's no intersectionality. So you score
I
sub-threshold
love
late.
this.
Yeah.
I love that we're actually getting to have this conversation again, like a few months later, because I don't know, I wanted to ask you without offending you if you had like one of these diagnoses, because you are like me in so many ways, and I definitely have an ADHD diagnosis. I mean, there's huge overlap in the physical, like, let's see, the somatic experience of being autistic fits perfectly with the subjective experience of being a highly sensitive person.
Yes.
But I didn't know that all
Yeah.
of that existed, nor did I realize that it wasn't a part of ADHD, to be determined. The researchers are still in the ring on that one, folks.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yes.
my take on this
Amazing.
is
I'm
that,
so glad.
there are I think a few things to address. First of all, I think it's very important for every neurodivergent person, or anyone who is suspecting they might be neurodivergent, to understand, to always remember that every neurodivergence is different. Let's say let's suppose I have ADHD, it will be confirmed. You have ADHD, I have ADHD. It isn't that, let's say, we have to have a set of symptoms, and that if something doesn't, let's say, you cannot check it out, then it isn't this. Like, every experience of a person is different. And I think it is very
What
important
works
to
for
remember.
me is not always going to work for you.
Exactly. We will have
Yeah.
different symptoms, different like struggles. Sometimes things that you struggle with will not be things that I struggle with, and vice
The
versa.
diversity.
Yes. So even, let's say, I would say, remembering is very important, to remember that we might be, let's say, labeled as autistic, or, having ADHD, or et cetera, et cetera. But even if we are under the same label, it is always instrumental to remember that this is like just like a label. I treat a label as a sign, as a like pointing to some direction. It is not defining. So it is there to help you to understand your situation, but like, it's not that we all have to have a set of, traits, and they have to be 100%, because otherwise it's not this. So this is one thing. And also I wanted to refer to address what you mentioned. It's hind or hint. Sorry, I don't want to.
Hint. It's hint.
Hint.
It's
Okay.
hint.
Sorry. Hint. Okay.
It's all right.
So
Yeah.
what you mentioned. Let's say this is very important to address, that autism in women is expresses itself so much in such a different way than in men.
Mhm.
And it is not widely, people don't realize how different it is. Because even if we look into the research back, years back, let's say if there was research, it wasn't women or girls who were tested. Like what we
Mhm.
know about autism is mainly a result of research, when men were being subjects of these research. So let's say many conclusions or stereotypes really, well, stereotypes are always very, something that we should take with a grain of salt, like, okay. But women's autism is just very different. And so why I'm saying that let's say I have traits that are against many of the typical autistic
Mhm.
traits is, for instance, I am a very cuddly person. I like touch.
Yeah,
I will, yeah,
I feel like this starts to go into what is a highly sensitive person, and is that really just code for autistic female? Or
mhm, yeah, it's a trait, Yeah, maybe
yeah,
let's address what
because it's
I
not a DSM diagnosis. It
yeah,
certainly is
yeah.
not like something
Well,
you're gonna get when you go to your therapist,
yeah,
but yeah,
yes,
it's more like something that you understand about yourself. Like, I
yes,
feel
yes.
strongly, and that's not a bad thing.
A highly
Reclaiming.
sensitive person, it is a term coined by a scientist, by
Oh.
Dr. Elaine Aron, but it's not a scientific term. Like there
Mm.
is scientific term is a sensitivity processing. It's this trait, SPS. I remember the acronym. So, but it is a trait, and it's assumed that around 20% of population possess this trait. So it's just, let's say, a part of the picture. So as I mentioned, yes, like it checks out that I was always a very, very cuddly person, a child who was very affectionate, who needed affection from my parents always, and from my grandma. And I was always like, they from the very beginning, they knew that I would be like, always not only asking for it, I would be initiating it. That's what I always needed. And I have to say that it was, even for years, many people would look at it quite, like, frowning that a grown-up woman could be so needing so
Yeah.
much affection from her parents, for instance, like a cuddly child still. So this is something that I really love and need. So it is often
I would
against, let's say,
love to reframe the word. You keep
yeah,
saying affection, and yeah, affection is appropriate, but also what you're really craving is connection
Gonna say, yeah.
yes,
and
yes,
social attunement. Like,
yes,
yeah, we're just social beings, and so maybe you have a higher
yeah,
need for experiencing that physically. Maybe
yes,
the physical, tactile stimuli
yes,
that you receive is more
yes,
powerful to your
yes.
nervous system.
Yes, and
Question mark.
also, yes, it's very, I think it makes sense, this explanation. I also am, this is another thing about me. I'm very open with like
Mm,
expressing in words, even what I feel.
yeah.
And this is, I think, this is with me. It's a case of too much information. Often I am an expert
Yeah.
at oversharing. So that's, I think, on the other hand, this is what's really saved my life, not just once, because from the very start, when I got medications, when I got psychiatric help, I never struggled with admitting that I had a mental illness. I was very open about it. I was always very cooperative with the medical team. I was always following their instructions. I wasn't rebelling against. So, and I was, let's say, asking for accommodations when I could. Like if I was applying somewhere for a course, anywhere, that I knew that, let's say, supplying this information that I had a mental health condition. If I believe that this is irrelevant information, I never had a problem with admitting that was the case.
What about admitting that you had like not a physical disability, but like medical disability? Like you
Yeah.
had medical needs also.
Yes. Yes,
Was it
that's
still always easy to advocate for those needs, or was it easier for you to focus on the mental health needs?
no difference here really.
That's awesome.
Yeah, the blog I run is also, well, I'm very open about my story, and it includes
What is
also,
that blog?
Yeah.
yes, it is a blog called, it is Karolina.com.
Yeah.
I like, let's say my creativity powers for the name was like limited when I was like choosing the domain.
You just wanted to get it going. You didn't
Plus,
want to
I mean,
fixate.
you got the
Yes,
domain. That's amazing. That's lucky. Carolina.com. Please. That's
yes,
amazing. Excuse me.
yes, and
'Cause
I
it would be Carolina 93 or 94, whatever, you would
yeah,
have to struggle with that. I can't even do a new email account with my name. So you got a domain. That's
yeah,
amazing.
yes. Well, if I went for Karolina.com, that would be taken, but it is like I can see people are trying to do this. It is me. So, sometimes it makes sense. But I am very open about these struggles. Also, I once took part in another podcast when I was, although it like the formula of the podcast is not that people are by their full names or faces, because it is a podcast with guests who are suicide attempt survivors.
Okay.
So it's a very, triggering content. So, but even then, there I was very open about it, and I have a link directly on my blog, to this episode. So, like, it is out there because I have this like very strong conviction that this is part of my story, and I didn't choose it for myself, and I can't. I don't want to think about it as something that I should be ashamed of, or embarrassed about even. Although I understand that the, let's say, social norms are that we don't talk about it. Like we don't talk about, having
Yeah.
emotions or distress. And I consider it very harmful because um, I think it speaks volumes about our society, how lost we are, that expressing emotions is considered a weakness.
Yeah. Let's keep going until she comes back. Don't worry.
Yes, like expressing emotions is considered a weakness when having emotions and expressing them is actually human.
Yeah.
And this is something that comes to mind when you see like someone is uh, you know crying or being like not hiding their emotions. Like very often people are like, oh, this is something wrong, like they shouldn't be expressing this,
Yeah.
showing this. And that's, I think, speaks a lot about the society, because it's wrong. Like having emotions is just like an inherent, part of being human. Like if you don't have emotions and you are like suppressing them, it's more like a machine, not a human being. Also, science proves that squeezing your emotions and trying to suppress them is only going to, kick you in the ass later, because it's
100%.
against health. So
So your
that's
journey,
some
you knew like from the beginning that there was something different and you
yeah.
managed to advocate for yourself from such a young age.
Uh, that's this is very n- it's it's quite difficult to answer this question, because as much as I was open about it, it's not that I was advocating for myself. I can't say that. It's hard to like really say why, because if you're like open about it, it means that you're trying to help yourself.
Yeah.
So in my case, most of this time, and I spent 25 years battling depression, I was cooperating, but first of all, I never had really a belief that it could lead to improvement.
Yeah.
And the reason I was cooperating and still trying to help myself, is because I knew how much distress my illness, how much distress brings it brings, because I could always understand, I could always see how very stressful that was to live, to have a child that you never knew. With someone who has depression, you never know what's like coming.
Do you say that you were consumed with guilt maybe? There is lack of hope I felt, but is
Yeah.
there a guilt part where you felt you were a burden on your parents or something?
Yes, I think that there is this thought, when you are actually not you don't live a life, you just exist, and
Yeah.
you're being, yes, that's the case. I, let's say, I started being medicated at 16, and ever since I started being homeschooled, and I was just really secluded recluse. Like, I wasn't leaving house, so my whole
Mm.
existence was dependent on people who were closest to me. And I always, I was aware it's not that they made me, feel like I was a burden. I knew that this is a burden, even emotional burden, knowing that you have a person who is absolutely at the lowest of moods all the time. I was like, let's say, sometimes I was very numb, but sometimes I was sarcastic, let's say, sarcastic about death.
Yeah. Using dark humor to cope.
Yes,
Yeah.
what I was doing is sometimes I would like start humming the funeral march, Chopin's, like
Yeah.
that's, yeah, like just in the middle of a dinner.
Yeah.
Or for instance, I would say like, I don't mind what you're going to do with my body. Like, you can like burn it, you can dispose of it. I don't care. You can even, put me in this coffin, in this living room. I really don't care. But I know it's like, let's say, it's very difficult. It must be very difficult for the people on the receiving end of it.
You know why I asked you these two questions?
Yeah.
Because these two are considered symptoms of depression and they're so common. And I always ask, do you feel like you're a burden on your family? Are you consumed
Yeah.
with guilt? And they always say yes. And the hopelessness of it all of it combined makes the person feel isolated and makes it really hard for them to speak up. So I absolutely knew that your parents didn't do anything
Yeah.
to make you feel
Yeah.
that way. And this is parts of the illness, to feel guilty and to feel hopeless.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I'm really sorry that you went through that. It's difficult. I think this is, very secluding in and of itself.
Yeah. Yes, and I have to say that this thought of, okay, I had the suicide attempt in 2010. So I was nearing my 22nd birthday. And I wasn't planning on it. I acted on an impulse. Because I remember what happened was that my mom she was like quite tired and busy. And she said something that I, as a very sensitive person, like for me, it was like some kind of like a triggering thing. And it crossed my mind that it really would be better for them if I wasn't in the picture, if I just died.
Hmm.
Like, it would make things so much easier.
Yeah.
And so I acted on it, and I took sleeping pills. I had always access to all the medications I was taking. So I just took the medication that I was taking for the night, my sleeping pills. I remember that this whole like package had, I think it was 60 tablets there, and one of them was 100 milligrams. And I don't know how, but I opened quite a newly opened, like not newly sealed, but quite new package. And I took like really a handful. I think it was the majority of this like container. But what saved me is that I immediately admitted it to my mom.
Yeah.
And so they took me to the emergency. And this was like a very, well, let's say it was this like quite a sobering experience, because I then decided that I wouldn't kill myself until my family is alive. As long as they are alive, I will keep on existing. And when my parents are dead, my granny is dead, my sister has her own life and so on. But once they are gone, I am, let's say, allowed to let's say take this to attempt again. That was, and I was living this in this, let's say, this way for years, really, until I started healing, like, let's say, in 2023, 22, at the end of 20.
What was happening around that time?
Great
Yeah.
question.
Yes, I know it's like, I think it's we need to hit our rock
Mm.
bottom sometimes to
I always
bounce.
say
Sometimes,
this.
like,
Yes,
again and again and again, though.
absolutely. And
But
your
even,
rock
yes, but
bottom
like,
is different from people's rock bottom. Someone could be breaking a leg
yeah,
and that's their, their rock
Yeah.
bottom. Someone else could be
Yes.
losing their home. Absolutely. Sorry, I got too excited about this, but you're absolutely right. I think
Yes.
hitting rock bottom, and it has to be
Yes.
your own to be a
Yes.
motivation for you. Yeah.
Yes. Everyone has their own version of rock bottom, and I think it's from the my rock bottom. There are just two ways. Like either you are just going to succumb there, or you're going to bounce back. And the latter happened to me. Now, why in 2022?
Mm.
I have to say that as much as I tried to kill myself in 2010 and never retried it, 2022 is the darkest year of my life. And let's say, I think what is the most alarming stage of depression is not when you are sad, melancholic. It's when you are emotionally numb.
Apathetic,
There is nothing.
numb.
You have nothing to lose really. Like, and this is very risky because you're starting taking risks not intentionally, but because nothing
It
really
doesn't matter
matters.
anymore.
Like at
Yeah.
this stage, like why you don't care any longer. This is the most dangerous stage, I think, a numb, like numb person, emotionally numb. And for me, it expressed itself. For instance, I am a very, I love films. I love,
Oh,
books. And so in
same. We need to talk
2022,
about that after talking about depression.
yeah, in
Yeah.
2022, I couldn't invest myself into caring to watch a film or a TV show. I like tried, let's say, 5-10 minutes. I would be like, no, and then maybe I'll just read the plot, like read what happened. Okay, that's it. But investing myself emotionally, not possible. Like you just like I couldn't, and I am a very a highly sensitive person, very emotional person, like love stories, like nothing, like it didn't exist for
Did
me.
you
And
realize at the time? Did you even realize how much you had changed? How did you
yes and
realize
no.
that you were apathetic? Oh gosh.
Yes, I was
No.
like, I knew what I was doing. For instance, maybe the question would be like, what saved me? I
Yeah.
would rephrase it into who saved me. So
Okay.
there were 3 people who never gave up on me, although I had given up on myself. And it was my then psychotherapist, a psychiatrist who then joined because he was suggested by my psychotherapist, and my friend, one friend that this is a very unlikely friendship. I'm going to elaborate on this in a second. But 3 people and my psychotherapist, we were seeing each other always online. This is like how it worked. And at some stage, it was like, therapy requires a lot of investment, emotional investment, right? So it was too much. So I felt like it wasn't entirely a lie, but I said, I can't afford, any longer the sessions. And I would just like, I need to stop here. And he was like, okay, so maybe just, like, let's have a session in a month. I want to check, check how you're
Yeah.
doing. And I was like, okay, so I will schedule an appointment in a month. And I didn't. Of course I didn't. And so he went back to me and he goes, so how are things, And he knew that at the stage before I withdrew, let's say, I was like giving hints of, because I was Googling the costs of euthanasia, how much it costs to bring body, back, blah, blah, blah. I know all the different things like this.
Yeah.
And so he told me, but maybe you could just, like maybe you write to me, just write me emails. Like it's not going to be paid, but you will be writing me emails. And this really worked for me because I thrive on written word. And I could like write him emails, very long emails. And it really worked for me because I could reflect on it. I didn't feel rushed, it really worked. But also what he suggested, he said, I met this psychiatrist. He's a young, medical doctor, but he's like really hands-on, has experience on words, and he has quite like a different, approach to things. And maybe you would like to try. And at this stage, I had a very vast, experience with psychiatrists.
Yeah.
And this is very, very important, worth mentioning, that I was at the time at 5 different psychiatric drugs.
I was
And
gonna ask. Yeah.
yeah, And they were not just antidepressants. No, there were neuroleptics, often medications that are also used for epilepsy. There was everything and anything. And I have to say, I think I tried every substance, because I was a treatment resistant patient. So they would be like trying everything. And so I started.
Did they ever explain why you were so tired all the time?
No one addressed it. And what is
They just said it was depression for your whole life.
Well, they didn't really get into this to this extent, Like it was, I remember my first doctor. I was 16. I went to her, asked her a question she couldn't really answer me, but the answer was really troubling because I asked her, do people, get out of this? I mean, of depression,
Yeah.
could they and she said, as you can see, people are not coming back, here. And I was like, I thought to myself later, but I couldn't verify what she's saying. I don't know who is coming back here. I just
Well, are
see
they
random people.
dying?
Yeah, I don't know. And, she was feeding me with different medications because she was like, oh, this doesn't work. Let's try something else. This doesn't work. Okay, again. And then I was very low. And before I got for the first time to a psychiatric hospital, I was really, this was a dramatic point for me because I was so scared. I didn't want to be with other people in the same room. This was the drama for me. I never spent more than 2 days at a psychiatric hospital because I just, would always run away. Too much of social interactions. But I remember that my mom asked her, maybe we could do something else, maybe try something else, not the hospital. And she said, we were trying, to do something for Karolina. Now it's time she does something for us. And this was a harsh experience, but I had many different experiences with doctors. One doctor just suggested me, nothing works for you. You can just try clinical trials, but the risk is that if the medication that, you are part of, the testing group for, if they don't approve it and it's not officially on the market and it works for you, well, the process, the clinical trial, finishes, but you have no medication. And, what I realized when I started working with this psychiatrist is that I was a kind of a bomb for the psychiatrists. They didn't want to, they were scared to approach it. There was this person who had already a set of 5 medications, and she was always very resistant to anything. So it was trouble really to try to, to do something about it. Because I have to say that the process of getting off all these medications was a proper nightmare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
You
I
can just
I can tell you,
epileptics easily. At least that's just one of them. Yeah, at least.
there is one specific, substance that I had. It is quetiapine, and it is a very tricky one because this was the final one that I was getting off. Final from these let's say, because I spent 2 years with one last antidepressant. I'm off medication since April this year, absolutely, totally, entirely. But quetiapine was the trickiest one because when I got off it, it was at the end of December 2022. And 1 week after the medication was completely, entirely gone from my system, I started experiencing very tough withdrawal effects. And I was in control, and at the same time, because I told my mom, for instance, you hide all the knives because I'm not planning anything, but I am in such a dysregulated state that I don't know if I will not act on something. I, just grab it and, stab myself. I don't know. And it was very difficult. And I called my psychiatrist and said, I am, walking on the walls, really. And he said, I know it sounds very harsh what I'm going to say, but you have to survive it because this is your body, trying to accommodate to the new state. We took away this very strong medication. And he said, what you can do is you take another medication, not a strong one, not an addictive one. It's pregabalin. And it will make you sleep through these weeks when this withdrawal effect just, goes away. And this is what happened.
Wow.
Yeah.
And thank you for sharing. That must be difficult, especially to revisit someone's most difficult time.
Yeah.
So I don't know how you're feeling right now, but I
I'm
think
good with this. I have to say that this is a tricky part because I considered my getting off these medications, I consider it like one of the greatest achievements of my life, really. And now it's over 2 months after, almost 3 months after I am off the medications, and it is very likely that I will need to start taking medications for ADHD because my mind is really running. Like I feel that my brain is, let's say, 10 meters ahead of me at least
Mm.
all the time. I'm chasing my own mind, and it's exhausting. And I
I'm
had
chasing
to,
my own mind. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I have to admit, I was struggling with the idea, not because I oppose to the notion, of being on medications, because I believe medications are there to help. It's not,
Yeah.
and I think this is something I want really all the people, listening to us to
Yeah.
remember. There's nothing wrong about medications per se. It's just about choosing the right ones, the right doses. It's about like designing your own treatment. So
Listen
this
to
is
your
why
body.
yes, and you need to depend on the medical team.
Yeah.
If they say, like so what I learned, my therapist told me, when you get these medications, they're going to help you immediately. You're not going to wait for the effect, like with depression,
Yeah.
antidepressants, like weeks. And
Mhm.
I had to accept, like I'm growing to this idea, I will be on these medications because I want to help myself. And
Mhm.
if I would be like thinking in using some kind of a binary thing, I would be like, oh, I got off all these medications, now I'm back, like it is a defeat. No, it isn't. But it's
It's a
just
new
life.
experiment, right? Because
Yes,
you
yes,
never even got to try those before, which is
yeah,
silly. It's like they were trying everything. Why not? And
I was thinking,
actually, if you're talking about Wellbutrin, sometimes people will take that in
yes,
addition to another type of ADHD medication as
yeah,
well. So
yeah.
again, and it's another experiment, but it can be exciting.
yeah,
Um, I wanted to talk really quickly about the impulsivity that you were mentioning around like, you were worried and you were like, hide the knives. And I really just wanted to say that when people talk about intrusive thoughts, that's what they mean, right? They're not talking about like, oh no, this song is stuck in my head.
yeah,
Yeah.
No, they're talking about like, oh my gosh, this is a trouble. Like this might cause harm to myself or others,
yeah,
and so that's at the point at which it becomes like a problem.
This is,
Um,
yeah. I was gonna say,
yeah,
there's two things. Just one thing is, it's very interesting that you are our guest after an episode where we were talking about ADHD and autism in women, and how we
yeah,
said that most of the time with women, what's picked up is depression, and
mm,
what
me
is,
too.
if the woman is lucky, depression that's resistant, then the doctor would say, okay, maybe she has ADHD. So you basically are that
Yeah,
scenario that we were talking about, treatment
yeah,
resistant depression. So now start thinking, what is
yeah,
going
yeah.
on other than
yes,
that?
and
And
I have to say,
unfortunately, no, the sad thing is you're considered one of the lucky ones. That's the sad part
yes,
about it.
yes.
Yeah.
I want to make it very, very clear that I consider myself a lucky one overall.
Thank
With
you.
all
Yeah.
the things that happened to me, I wouldn't change a single one because they made me into who I am right now, and I'm, quite good with who I am, with where
You're
I'm at.
pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Yes, it's not an easy journey, but it can be exciting.
Hmm.
I also, like all these years of suppressed self, like I am actually learning who I am right now, and it is scary. Like you're learning who you are as an adult, and I know it is also scary for people who surround me because they are also learning about this person with me. So it is like a tricky one. So also because because of my illness, as my friend really very, very, I think, correctly, like concluded about me, is that I am experiencing a belated adolescence right now. And I'm like having this very silly moments like a teenager, and I also have to accept it. Like sometimes, my being silly is so very childish. But
Have you
I'm
heard
good.
of the concept of healing your inner child?
Yes. Like
Yes.
my inner child
Yeah.
is explosively out right now, and
And
I'm
also watch out for the inner teenager because she'll be right behind.
yes, and but my friend, my friend even calls me her outrageousness. Like outrageous is an adjective for me. Like I have, let's say, I love dirty jokes, dad jokes, like silly.
Audacious.
Yes, very like, and it's often like so embarrassing, and often I often get into trouble because I blurt out things like it's out there
Yeah.
before like I even realize. Like it's there, like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah. You wish you
it's
could
it's
just like swallow the words.
yes, because I am. Also, what is, let's say, very against the stereotype of autism is that it is assumed that autistic people only like understand literal context. Like they
Yeah.
can. I am,
Yeah.
let's say I thrive on figurative speech. I thrive on wordplay, like a banter, on like innuendos. Like this is my element.
Probably because you realized really early that you needed to understand the nuance in order to survive in your social
Mhm.
environment.
That
That's
is
a very,
so
I think, a
true.
very, very wise insight. Yes.
And I
Thank
think
you.
also I was thinking about that recently with metaphors. I feel you can be very good and expressive and write your own
Mm-hmm.
metaphors. I think maybe, and correct me if I'm wrong, what we're saying when we talk about difficulty understanding metaphors is when someone says, "Call me later." Okay, when is later?
Yes.
Or
Yes.
you can
Yes.
call me
You're very right.
anytime. You're like,
It's not precise.
really? What do you mean?
Yeah.
These social rules that are so like,
Yes.
that's what we mean.
Ambiguous.
We don't mean when we say, not everything that shines is gold. We know what that means.
Yes.
We know that
Yes.
we
Yes.
know that, that proverb. So it's interesting that, sometimes
Mm.
people will try, professionals will
Yeah.
try to assess abstract and concrete thinking like this. Yeah.
Boun Bouncing back to the obsession with the movies thing, I know that's something that Hind shares in common, really just, like, being obsessed with, like, pop culture and, like, movies, and I
Mhm.
also know that for, like, autistics and ADHD people, the repeating of the lines in movies, that's a really normal behavior that they see. Either it's people learning how to interact with other people by just repeating
Yeah. Yeah.
shared
Yes.
things.
Yes.
Yeah.
For me,
So
it's like I was always into storytelling. Like I had as a
did
highly
it allow
sensitive
you
person.
to be expressive and give you the
Yes, and
stage?
let's say, for instance, very, I think, a common trait for highly sensitive people is that they don't necessarily like horror movies.
Oh yeah.
I never watched, like, I watched two horror
Yes.
movies in my life, and I had to have a proper, like, a week recovery long afterwards. It's something, and I never, like, it wasn't that I knew that I didn't like it. I was, like, always organically protecting myself from this. It requires then a proper recovery. I once encountered a very good analogy about how sensitive, like, energy levels work for highly sensitive people. And if you think about our energy levels as people, not just highly sensitive people, but people in general, you have a bin. You have a bin that is in the beginning of the day, it's empty. But then, as you do things throughout the day, your bin slowly, fills with like different things. And this is your, let's say, limit, because when it gets, to this upper limit, it spills. This is where your energy levels will just are gone. But for highly sensitive people, their bins are just much smaller. So
Yeah.
the spillage really happens much earlier. This is, like, I think, a very good way of explaining how this
Mhm. And
works.
sometimes
You have
and
to be very
sometimes we
mindful.
wake up with full buckets already.
Yes, that's very correct, because especially if you didn't have a good night's sleep, and for highly sensitive people, we really need more sleep. I once read about it. Like, we really need more sleep because we are still a bit like it takes us more time to fully get into the resting mode. And, it's like, it's a tricky business.
So I have a question because we started off talking about two things, fatigue and you feeling different from everyone else. And we kind of discussed the difference part and what, coping mechanisms, what interests you built around that. The fatigue, I found the subject of fatigue in women to be so broad, so complex, and rarely addressed properly. So I want to know, what have you done, not what you have done, like what have you, where have you gone, and what was given to you options for this fatigue? Did they find an organic cause? Is it hormonal? Is it, well, it's just a depression, like, like some of them say? What's your
Yeah.
journey with the fatigue?
It is a very complex, I think with every person, it will be a complex answer. So in my case, because of a bariatric surgery I underwent years ago, I have, let's say, anatomical irreversible changes that really lead to different, let's say, conditions or deficiencies. Namely, I have over 1 meter of my small intestine removed, the initial part. So this automatically leads to my deficiency in iron. And when you're iron deficient, you are drowsy. That's one of the top. So you're like, you want to sleep all the time. So fatigue, this is one of the factors. I also struggle with vitamin D deficiency, which also, when you have a deficiency of vitamin D, you will feel drowsy. I also have because of this, like within this bariatric surgery, I underwent a truncal vagotomy, which means that my vagus nerve was fully cut. And it also translates to regulating emotions, among other things. So these are, like factors that also impact my, let's say, how fatigue works for me. And especially as a highly sensitive person, once, my vagus nerve was cut, like regulation of emotions became even trickier.
They did that on purpose?
So this is a part of the surgery, because when they cut a vagus nerve, it makes the emptying of stomach happens much later. So this is for and let's say the bile secretion, changes. This is it's not just emotional related. So this is why. And I also had 75% of my stomach removed then, which at the time I didn't know what it really meant, but it turns out that it also, even though this,
How old?
yeah. I was 19. And I was really severely obese because I started being on medications when I was 16.
Yeah.
And this is why I started really getting obese. So to give you an idea, I made a metrics. I have metrics in kilograms and pounds. When I was 16, I weighed 72 kilograms, which is 158 pounds. And my height is 176 centimeters, which is 5.77. Okay, so from this at 16, I went to 137 kilograms, which is 302 pounds in 3 years, less than 3 years. And really, it's not about even the physical ailments that started, because when you're that, heavy, even my knees were really I could hear my knees, squeaking. So, but mainly I believe that this surgery will really save my life in a terms that now all my problems will be gone. And as it turned out, it was just another chapter to my problems, another category. I'm having my cat here by my side, so she's quite needy.
That's okay. She's connection
No, she needs
seeking.
connection.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Co-regulation. Maybe the cat knows that we're talking about heavy shit right now.
Yeah, she's quite needy. When I'm busy working on something, she's 1 hour afterwards, that's
but
enough.
What about me?
And she's never yes, and she's never doing things meowing. She has very implicit way of intervention, because she starts dropping things. you know.
Very passive
That's what
aggressive.
that's great. I think I'm like not trying to force her, but she will show something like.
Yeah, let's see. Yeah, let's see. Let's see. Let's see.
Oh, baby.
Oh, she's so cute. Okay, wait, wait. Yeah, yeah. Let's try a little bit. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Feel that.
we were talking about fatigue, and you said that it started with the bariatric surgery.
Mm.
It wasn't before.
We talk about thyroid disease on here a lot because I'm hyperthyroid. And so Hashimoto's is hypothyroid. It means like a slower metabolism. It affects probably other hormones as well, but that's not as well studied as the thyroid hormone. So I just wanted to butt in and
I mean, you have to give the definition. I think you're also in a category that's very interesting, Carolina, which is chronic illness. Chronic illness is not really talked about in a way that it should be talked about. It's if you have diabetes, you have it forever. If you have, if you have a thyroid problem, you have it, forever. And that has a
wow.
mental, financial, energy, and time tax. And sometimes it becomes counterintuitive. Sometimes it takes so much of your money, so much of your time that you don't have enough money and time to buy your medications anymore. It's such a vicious cycle.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, we really had a long chat, but
It's
it was great. Thank you very much for
uh,
this.
thank you. Yeah. If you just want to repeat really quickly where people can find
Yes.
you on the internet.
Yes. Okay. So, it is Karolina.com, and I have like this idea of three pillars for, a healthy, happy life, which is education, work, and well-being plus health. And I think this is the foundation for every person to have a steady, healthy, normal life. But my angle is obviously from a neurodivergent point of view, because my experience is
Mhm.
that you can regain, your control over your life. Like, the world isn't, let's say, neurodivergent friendly yet, but it doesn't mean that one cannot have carve their own path. Like, it is possible. It's not
Yeah.
easy, but it is possible with the right tools, with the help of the right people, and when you
Mhm.
are willing to be vulnerable, because vulnerability, sorry, like is the word, is in actual strength. It saves lives.
Yeah.
So
Taking the risks, feeling
yes,
comfortable to be uncomfortable, that is going to put you in the rooms that change your life.
yes, and
So,
people's response to your vulnerability is never about you, but about them. And if they cannot handle it, just I like to to see it as that's okay, like just like I was a victim to bullying and in my childhood, and it
yeah.
came I realized when lately really that bullying is really never about the target. It's the insecurity of the bully, and it doesn't justify their actions. It's not an excuse, but it's an explanation, and it helps to see the perspective of what's happening. Like, no healthy, sane person will find pleasure or comfort from breaking down another human being. That's not happening,
Yeah.
So that's the point. Thank
Thank
you
you.
for having me. Thank you. I'm so looking forward to this. Yeah.
Amazing. Wonderful. Thanks for being here. If you want to connect with the Neurodivergent Report, you can find us at ND Report Pod on Instagram, Threads, TikTok, YouTube, Blue Sky, Substack, etc.
If you're looking to support the show, the best thing you can do is subscribe and leave us a 5-star review. Please do that.
And hey, if you want to check out more about us, visit our website at ndreportpod.com. And you can also go there if you want to be a guest contributor on the show.
Till next time, be well, do good. Bye.